James and Ben back here for Odds Checker. We got a pay-per-view coming up this Saturday for the UFC 286 going down at the O2 Arena in London. Earlier start time, keep that in mind, 1 p.m. Eastern time. For those of you out there, get a little daytime MMA. And we're going to start first in the middleweight division. Really exciting matchup here. Marvin Vettori taking on Roman Dolidze. And right now on Odds Checker, you'll see Vettori almost a 3-1 favorite. The comeback on Dolidze around plus 230. Who you liking here, Ben?
Yeah, I like Vettori. I don't love the line on him. You just look at who he's lost to. Like, most recently, his only loss to Robert Whittaker, who is, in my opinion, probably the greatest fighter at middleweight behind Adesanya, and then Adesanya, who I think will reclaim the belt soon. But, I mean, those are his only 2 losses recently. So he's been on a really good run except for those 2 fights, and he's beaten probably the better opponents. He has, like, an impressive win against Jack Hermansson, Kevin Holland, which was a good win for him. And so I think in this fight, if Dolidze wants to take it to the ground, Vettori has an excellent sub game. He is good sub defense himself. Like, he has good grappling, excellent Brazilian jiu-jitsu. On the feet, I think he can keep it competitive, winning on the feet as well. So the path to victory for Hermansson here.
Dolidze, Hermansson's who he beat in his last fight.
Yeah. So I just think the paths to victory are more clear for him. I want to take him by decision here because I don't think he'll finish Dolidze. He's definitely a tough guy to put away. He's never been put away in his professional career, and he's fought some tough fighters. So I do think it's a decision win for Vettori just to knock that juice down because it is a pretty juice line.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking for that as well. I think this is a pretty obvious fight here. You've got Roman Dolidze, who I think people forget is a little bit older. He's actually older than Vettori in this fight. He's 35, but this guy has been finishing everyone from, on the ground to stand-up. I mean, you look at what he did to Kyle Dawkins' face a few fights ago, knocking him out, and then he goes out and submits Jack Hermansson. So this guy is obviously very deadly and not someone I'm overlooking in this fight. However, he's fighting an opponent in Marvin Vettori who's never been finished in the UFC, Ben. So it's going to be difficult for him to do it, especially with it only being 3 rounds. Vettori's fought the far better competition. That fight with Whittaker, I mean, I thought Whittaker clearly won, but he didn't get finished in that one too. So I think Vettori, I don't think he's at the top of the division, but I think he's still in that top 5 range. That's why this matchup makes a lot of sense here. Dolidze has really, risen high in the division here, but I just don't think he'll get that finish that he's looking for. And I think if he can't finish Vettori, I think Vettori wins the decision here. So I haven't seen it up here now, but they do have will the fight go the distance. -175. Again, I think if Dolidze wins, it is a finish. But I would look at Marvin Vettori by decision, like Ben just said here. I think that's the play to bring down the juice. Otherwise, just stay away because part of me is worried that Dolidze might finish him. This might be the fight, but again, with what history's shown us, Vettori has been in there with some of the best and hasn't gotten finished. I don't think Dolidze will necessarily be the guy to do it. Okay, let's get to the women's flyweight division. We have Jennifer Maia taking on Casey O'Neill, and right now on Odds Checker, you can see Casey O'Neill almost a 2-1 favorite, but -170. The comeback on Jennifer Maia +145. Which way are you going here?
Yeah, I don't have anything like strong in this fight, but I do think O'Neill is going to win it. She's a super aggressive fighter. She's averaging like 8.6 strikes per minute, which is kind of significant strikes per minute. She's averaging over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. So, I mean, she's staying super active inside the octagon when she's actually fighting. I mean, she actually is coming off an injury, funny enough, to her knee. So I don't know if she'll be 100% because of that, but I still think she can honestly win this anywhere. She could take her down. Maia, she is coming off a win herself, but it could be a close fight. It could be a blowout. So I don't have anything strong in this fight, even though I do think O'Neill wins it. I probably won't bet it though, just because -170. It's not like I would probably bet O'Neill if this were a closer line, but almost 2-1. I don't love it.
Yeah, O'Neill's one of the sort of prospects to watch at flyweight. She's like there's a few other girls in that weight class that have really been making their mark. O'Neill's one of them. But only O'Neill's coming off a bit of a layoff against, she fought Roxanne Modafferi last February, coming off that I believe it was a knee injury. That's a bit of a concern. And not only that, but that Roxanne fight, she didn't look that great, I thought. She ended up getting the win, and I know Roxanne's tough to finish, but I still was not as impressed with that win here. And Jennifer Maia, I mean, we saw this in their last fight, fighting a prospect that I think a lot of people expected Marina Moroz to win, and she didn't. Maia went out there and took care of business. And, we talked about level of opposition in the Vettori and Dolidze fight. Look at this. Montefiore Caitlin Chukagian, Valentina Shevchenko, these are all top fighters in the weight class.
Yeah.
Some like opponents that Casey O'Neill has not even come close to fighting, right? So that's, I'm going to warn people about this fight. I could see an upset here. I'm not going to go out and pick Maia in this one. I do think O'Neill's younger. There's a lot more promise. I think the UFC is also very strategic in terms of their matchmaking, in the sense that they really like O'Neill. They want her to obviously build up the profile a bit. And she's from Scotland. This fight's in London. So, obviously they know which side the crowd is going to be on in this one. But I would maybe look, I actually am going to see if they have it here. The will the fight go the distance? Yeah, see, you're getting minus 280, not really getting much odds there. I think this fight will go to the decision, and I think it will be close like the Roxanne Modafferi fight. I did think O'Neill clearly won, but it was still a split on the judges' scorecards. I could see the same thing here, but I don't think Casey O'Neill is going to finish Jennifer Maia. Again, Valentina Shevchenko couldn't finish her. Manon Fior, who's got absolute great knockout power, couldn't finish her either. I think this goes the distance. So yeah, pick's going to be O'Neill, but I'm warning you, O'Neill backers here, this could backfire just because of the circumstances of, like I said, the layoff and getting a step up in competition here. I mean, going from Roxanne Modafferi to Maia, I think is a big jump. So we'll see, but pick's going to be O'Neill by decision. Okay, next fight we're going to look at here is in the welterweight division. We've got Gunnar Nelson taking on Bryan Barberena, and right now on OddsChecker, you can see Gunnar Nelson, a big favorite, almost 4-1, minus 360. The comeback on Barberena, plus 295. Who are you liking here, Ben?
Yeah, it's interesting because Nelson's a pretty large favorite. He's fought kind of sporadically though. It's like he's had a few long layoffs before, and so nearly a year here now too. And before that, it was a few years. So he hasn't been super active inside the octagon, which is a little bit of an issue for me, but obviously a world-class grappler. And we did, interestingly enough, just see Barberena's last fight. He was submitted by RDA. So, and RDA hadn't had a submission in a while. So it will be interesting to see what happens if this fight goes to the ground, which it probably will. But on the feet, I mean, Bam Bam's always live. Like Barberena's always live for a knockout. He stays, he strikes at a really high pace. He pushes the pace. He's not easy to put away himself. So I do think this fight will be really interesting if it gets to the ground. I don't hate a stab at Barberena, just because I do think if he can really stuff those takedowns, then on the feet he can win this fight, maybe like a greasy split decision or something. But I just think for the inactivity with Nelson, I don't know exactly what we're going to see in this fight. If it goes to the ground, he'll probably submit him. But I don't necessarily love the line. So if anything, I do like a stab just for the pretty high price tag on Barberena, because it feels like if this fight stays on the feet, he can win it. So I like that.
I feel like we're almost previewing the Rafael dos Anjos and Bryan Barberena fight from last time, because we not have the same narrative. No, it's true though. Like, I think the odds are off here for sure. I think you can even make an even greater case in this matchup, just with the fact that, like you said, Nelson has barely fought, and the guy he fought in his last fight, Takashi Sato, that's a winnable fight for him. I mean, it's, again, you have to go all the way back to 2019, the last time he fought, and he lost. And granted, these are really good opponents, but I don't know what you're getting with Gunnar Nelson at this point. I think there's two ways you bet this fight. You either bet Barberena straight up, because I do think there is value. I think if it stays standing, I think Barberena's got the better striking. But the worry is, because we saw this in the Dos Anjos fight, if Gunnar Nelson gets into the ground, he's going to submit him. So maybe look at that submission prop for Gunnar. Maybe get a bit creative with the odds if you feel like betting this. But I'm probably just going to sit back and enjoy the fight. I may take a little stab at Barberena because, again, plus 280. Like, I get that Barberena is sort of maybe sort of the gatekeeper in the weight class, like a guy that, if you beat him, you're probably pretty good. But I also think that, he's surprised us a few times too. So pick's going to be Nelson by submission, but would not be shocked at all if Bryan Barberena keeps us standing and gets an upset and we're all shocked. So yeah, that's kind of my read on this fight. Okay, let's get to the co-main event. Love this one, fight of the year. This should really be 5 rounds. This is an absolute disgrace that this is only 3 rounds, because this has got fight of the year written all over it. Justin Gaethje, Rafael Fiziev. And right now you can see on OddsChecker, Rafael Fiziev, almost a 3-1 favorite. So this line was actually closer. I've been keeping an eye on it. Looks like more money coming in on Fiziev. Gaethje about plus 190 here. Who you liking in this matchup?
Yeah, this is tough because I am like a huge Justin Gaethje fan. And the line saddens me a little bit because like he probably will lose, but in my heart, I can't bet this one because I just cannot bet against Gaethje, even though I know he'll probably lose. But I hate betting on or against my heart when I side with the fighter mentally. So I can't really bet this one. Fiziev, probably he has the path to win it. And I will say Gaethje, he hadn't been submitted like much. I think if anything, the path might be a submission here. I know that he fought like his last 2 losses are submissions. Granted, they were Khabib Nurmagomedov and Charles Oliveira. Like those are 2 pretty good names to be submitted against. So I'm not saying like his grappling's horrible, his defense is horrible, because it looked really great up until those 2 submission losses. But if Fiziev can take this to the ground, which I think he will, I think this is just a winnable fight for him. It should be a really good fight though, because that Gaethje Chandler fight, that was like incredible. Chandler never has a boring fight. I kind of see this going the same way. It should be maybe a fight of the night. It should be awesome, but I don't think I can bet this one. So nothing for me here.
So I have a little bit of a different read on this. With Gaethje, I just look at a guy who unfortunately has taken a lot of damage. He's 34 years old now, and he's coming off a layoff, right? He fought Oliveira in May of last year, so we're coming up to almost a year that he last fought. So those are two big red flags off the bat. And with Fiziev, I mean, I think he answered a lot of questions in that last fight over Rafael Dos Anjos. First off, Dos Anjos is extremely tough to finish. Go look at Dos Anjos' record at lightweight and how many times he's been stopped. I think the last time he was stopped prior to that, I could be wrong on this, I think was Eddie Alvarez. Let's see if my trivia is good here. But if you look at him as far as him getting finished at lightweight, it was Eddie Alvarez back in 2016. There you go. My memory's still good. So, like kind of what I'm getting at is that Fiziev not only finished him, but he finished him in the 5th. Wasn't that the big criticism with him when he fought Bobby Green was, this guy, he doesn't have any cardio. But he proved that in the fight with Dos Anjos. Like, you know how hard it is to get a finish in the 5th round? So, Fiziev's got the cardio. It's only 3 rounds, like I mentioned. So that's why I kind of feel like we might see a decision here. I know that sounds crazy. I know these two guys have extremely great knockout power. I know Fiziev himself has one blunder on his resume, and that's when he got finished in the 1st round by Mustafayev. But I think with what's at stake here, again, a potential title shot, although I worry that the Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler fight will sort of bypass that. But this is a big fight for the division. I could see them going back and forth. Gaethje, if you've seen the last couple of fights, he's really scaled it back a little bit, not as wild, a little bit more technical. But he's fighting a guy who I think is a better striker than him in Fiziev. And Fiziev's also younger, 4 years younger, hasn't taken nearly as much damage as Gaethje has as well. I like Fiziev by decision. I think that's the play here. If you do like Fiziev, I think the minus whatever it was almost minus 300, a little too steep because Gaethje, again, he's still got a puncher's chance, but I think Fiziev, I think to stay standing, and I think Fiziev's a better striker. That's kind of how I see this, and I think he's going to go and win the decision here. So we don't have the odds yet, but I do see the fight goes the distance is plus money, so maybe you take that because again, I just think with it being 3 rounds, I don't know if we'll see a finish, and I don't think these guys will be too wild with the fact of like I said, implications for the division. So that's where I'm going with the co-main event. Okay, main event. We've got Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, the trilogy fight. Usman won the first fight back in 2015. Leon Edwards got one of the best comeback wins in UFC history last year, knocking out Usman and winning the title. And right now on OddsChecker, you can see Usman's the favorite, almost 3-1. Leon Edwards plus 205. Who are you liking here, Ben?
I don't want to say it's like necessarily a fluke, but it kind of was a fluke because Edwards, he's actually landed that same head kick, almost the exact same thing multiple times. Like that's an amazing head kick, and he has that in his arsenal. So I'm actually more surprised. Usman, I mean, he just let his guard down. It's as simple as that. Like he let his guard down. He knew he was up. He knew a few minutes later he would have his hand raised by unanimous decision. And I don't want to say that, but I mean, he did let his guard down. And for a champion, I don't think he makes the same mistake again. He was on like a 7-fight title run, 6 defense, I think. And so I just think, I don't want to say he was like coasting, but we've seen it with these title runners in the women's divisions who were going for a long time. And then they almost kind of let their guard down against a fighter and they ended up losing. Most recently, Antonia Shevchenko. So, I mean, we've seen it. Or sorry, Valentina Shevchenko.
Valentina, I was going to say
recently. Her sister. I said her sister's name. That's funny.
Yeah, it's okay.
But, we've seen it recently. So I think that's what happened to Usman. I think he comes back and he gets a win here. Decision is plus 110.
That's the play. That is absolutely the play here, I think. I've
already bet it. I've already bet decision plus 110. That's like, I think it's going to close juiced. I think it's going to close juiced because Edwards, incredibly tough guy to put away. Usman was not going to put him away in the first fight. He wasn't going to put him away in the 5th. He was on his way to cruise to a unanimous decision victory. He was up 3-1. Arguably could have made a case if the 5th round finished, then Usman would have won that one too. And more interestingly enough, Edwards, his takedown defense is good, but Usman has actually landed a takedown in every round they have fought. They have fought 8 full rounds now, and Usman has landed at least 1 takedown in every single round that he has faced Edwards. So just coming into this fight, I think his wrestling is going to be too much. I mean, like, he's going to establish he's one of the best fighters. Edwards actually passed him in the pound-for-pound rankings. He's number 4, and Usman's number 5 now. So I just think all this is just building up for Usman to come out on top again. He's the better fighter. He's just a better fighter at the end of the day. He let his guard down in the 5th round. I think it's going to happen again.
So a couple things about this fight that I want to kind of, look at before. I mean, I already kind of revealed my pick there, but a couple things that I want to mention that I think are worth looking at. Number one is the fact that Usman was finished and he was knocked out cold. I mean, that was a brutal knockout that he suffered. So at 35 years old, that's tough to take, right? It's not like you're a 20-year-old getting knocked out and, maybe your chin can kind of get built back up. There's a school of thought that Usman may never be the same again after getting knocked out like that, because it was a brutal knockout. Second thing, you alluded to it there, Leon won that first round. That was surprising. I don't think anyone's won the first round against Usman like ever, at least not in recent memory. Maybe one of the Colby fights was I think maybe the first Colby fight he might have won the first round, but still, the fact that Leon clearly won that round, I think, is a lot of confidence for him. The thing we haven't even mentioned, this is in Leon's backyard. Like, this is a huge career moment for him, because if he wins, this will be one of the best moments in MMA history of a guy successfully closing a chapter on a rivalry and doing so in your home country. So that's a bit of an advantage for Leon as well. And then the other thing was the surprising fact that, Leon was able to go 5 rounds at elevation in the last fight. He doesn't even train at elevation. Usman does, and he still seemed the fresher guy in the 5th. So these are reasons why I think Leon could pull this off. But you have to go with what we know. And what we know is that Kamaru Usman has fought better competition. He's been more active. He's got that wrestling, which, like you said, every fight he's getting a takedown in. And I just think it's so hard for Leon to do that again, because I really do think that's the way he wins this. I don't think Leon's winning a decision. I don't think Leon's going to submit Usman. I think he's got to land that shot again. And yes, he has 5 rounds to do it, and he did it last time, but it's still very hard to replicate that again. So, I think the play here is Usman by decision. The fact you're getting this at plus money, I think, is one of the best lines we've had all year. Like, that's crazy to me. I guess I'm assuming they think that Usman's going to finish Leon, but if you look at Leon's career, I know Nate Diaz rocked him and all this stuff, but you look at it here, he's a tough guy to take out. In fact, you have to go all the way back to an illegal knee that he suffered in like his 3rd pro fight for him actually, the fight not going the distance. So I think Usman probably wins the decision here. He gets his title back, and then maybe he retires, because I don't know what's next for him as far as like big matchups in the division. You've got Bilal Muhammad, you've got, obviously all these other guys chomping at the bit here, but I think Usman wins the decision here. I think that's the play.
Yeah.
So
and I do think well, I was just going to say, because I do think it's different because you mentioned the thing about his chin, and I do think that's true. And so I think he'll focus a lot on, because like I said, I think he let his guard down with that kick. Because, I mean, Edwards is known for that kick. Like, he's thrown it many times. He has excellent head kicks. So that's something that I think he was ready for it in the first 4 rounds, and he let his guard down. But I want to mention that he almost never takes like a super clean shot with his head movement and everything. He almost never takes a clean shot when it's from hands. Like, it seems like he's never been knocked out before that fight via like strikes. So that was his first loss in the UFC, and it was his first knockout loss. And it's a little bit different when you're kicked in the head with such a powerful kick, and when you're kicked with like a jab. So I just want to say that's a little bit different, because that's something that I think Usman will be looking for in this fight. He'll be especially cautious for the head kicks. So maybe that will end up being something that opens up the striking for Edwards a little bit, because he knows that he's going to be looking for that head kick. But I do think that this is just an Usman decision all the way. I agree with you.
Yeah, and one more thing I wanted to mention about the decision thing too. I know Usman had finished, like I said, Masvidal and Burns, but I think he could be a little bit more wild in those fights. He's got to win this fight. If Usman loses this, he'll never get to fight Leon again, because Leon will have 2 wins over him. The chances of him getting another title shot at 35 is going to be very difficult. Like, this is all on Usman here. If Leon loses, I think there's a possibility we do see him fight for a title again. But with Usman, I'm not so sure with that bit of an age gap there. So with that said, I think Usman plays a little bit more safe, goes with his wrestling, and I think even more, that's why it leads to a decision here. So just sort of supporting that argument as well. All right, that is it for us today. I hope you cash those bets this Saturday. Again, just a reminder, it is an earlier card. I believe it starts at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So that's about 10 a.m. Pacific time. So a little bit of daytime MMA on Saturday for myself. For Ben, thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week for I believe it's Corey Sandhagen and Chito Vera card. Go cash those bets this weekend.